His name was Jason. I was working the day that it happened.
Hi, I'm Rose at 3Digitalis and I just rewatched Friday the 13th just in time for Friday the 13th. You try and be original all the time. Some things are just gonna be derivative. It's been 37 years since Jason came slashing into our lives across 10 movies, one crossover, and reboot that I'll debate the merits of ever talking about. Most people only associate Camp Crystal Lake or Camp Blood with a hulking immortal swamp monster trying to protect his home from invaders. Huh? Did I just describe Solomon Grundy?
I understand, Mr. Grundy, that you were born in a swamp.
Spoilers for a movie older than most of the people living today that's been sequel to death and remade in 3, 2, 1. What made the first Friday the 13th stand out compared to its cinematic predecessors? Its own sequels that shouldn't exist after the final chapter.
Jason's reign of terror is over. Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Jason's unlucky day.
I'll do a list of sequels that tried to kill franchises later. And those that would follow was first and foremost the villain. A villain who could make herself completely invisible by putting their victim at ease. Or as Victor Miller put it, I took motherhood and turned it on its head, and I think that was great fun. Mrs. Voorhees was the mother I'd always wanted, a mother who would have killed for her kids.
We weren't doing anything, we were just messing around.
Hi, I'm going to Camp Crystal Lake.
Hi. What are you doing out in this mess?
Friday the 13th crosses 23 years of revenge-driven violence, beginning with the accidental drowning death of 12-year-old Jason Voorhees, but it was the murder of 2 camp counselors the following year in 1958 that closed the camp. The Christie family tried to reopen in 1962, but gave up when suspected arson-related fires swept through the campgrounds. In 1979, Steve Christie, using his own money, began rebuilding the camp and was ready to open by July of 1980. His staff arrived in mid-June to help with final prep and setup. The direction and writing team of Shawn S. Cunningham and Victor Miller even offered a false lead in the form of Ralph, but he can be dismissed by seeing how the counselors react to the unseen Mrs. Voorhees compared to how people reacted to Ralph.
You're going to Camp Blood, ain't you?
God damn it, Ralph, get out of here. Go on, get. Leave people alone.
You'll never come back again.
And 15 minutes before Mrs. Voorhees is revealed, we learn that Ralph's been taken home at least 20 miles from the camp. At about an hour and 15 minutes, we get our first real look at our movie monster. A middle-aged woman who makes June Cleaver look scary. Tom Savini, special effects legend and occasional zombie buffet, shared that they padded actress Betsy Palmer to make her appear non-sexual and motherly. And he did succeed. I first saw Friday the 13th in the late 80s, and that someone who reminded me of Alice from the Brady Bunch was the killer all along blew my mind.
Well, I'm Mrs. Voorhees, an old friend of the Christies.
Oh,
No.
Mrs. Voorhees even went so far as to hide the bodies, sometimes in trees, bend them to doors using arrows, or throwing one through a window, implying that the murderer must be a giant of some kind or an average-sized predator. But is there anything more giant than a mother's love?
kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
The film's protagonist, Alice, played by Audrey N. King, always reminds me of what I hate about so many modern suspense movies. Everyone is so fearless or quick on their feet while recovering from trauma that you don't feel scared for them. But there was a time when people remembered that terror was a real feeling and didn't hesitate to include it in a movie. If you're new to the franchise or you've been a fan for almost 40 years, I hope you take some time to enjoy this horror classic that spawned movies, video games, comic books, cartoon cameos, and a plethora.
Well, you told me I have a plethora, and I just would like to know if you know what a plethora is. I would not like to think that a person would tell someone he has a plethora and find out that that person has no idea what it means to have a plethora.
Plethora of satires, parodies, and imitations.
Love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. Love never fails. Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 8.
I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10 and hope you see it soon. Thanks for watching. This was Rose at 3Digitalis wishing a happy Halloween. Please like, share, and...